It was a cold, foggy evening in London when Detective Harold Grimes received an urgent call. The subway station at Elmwood Street had been shut down after a body was discovered on the tracks. Harold, known for his sharp mind and unshakable calm, grabbed his coat and hurried to the scene. The station was eerily quiet, except for the distant hum of police radios. The body belonged to a well-dressed man in his late 40s, identified as Mr. Charles Whittaker, a banker. His briefcase lay open beside him, its contents scattered papers, a wallet, and a small mysterious key. Harold knelt beside the body, examining the scene. There were no signs of struggle, and the man's face was oddly peaceful. The train conductor claimed he hadn't seen anyone on the tracks until it was too late. But something didn't add up. Why would a successful banker end up on the subway tracks in the middle of the night? Harold muttered to himself. He picked up the small key and studied it. It was old, with intricate designs, unlike any modern key. Harold decided to visit Charles Whittaker's home. The house was a grand Victorian building, but inside it felt cold and empty. Mrs. Whittaker, a frail woman with tear-stained cheeks, greeted him. "I don't understand why this happened," she sobbed. Charles was a good man. He had no enemies. Harold nodded sympathetically, but noticed something odd. A photo on the mantelpiece showed Charles with a woman who wasn't Mrs. Whittaker. When Harold asked about it, Mrs. Whittaker hesitated. "That's his sister, Clara. She passed away years ago," she said, her voice trembling. Harold's curiosity grew. He asked about the key, but Mrs. Whittaker claimed she had never seen it before. As he left the house, Harold couldn't shake the feeling that Mrs. Whittaker was hiding something. The next day, Harold visited the bank where Charles worked. His colleagues described him as a quiet, dedicated man. But one employee, a young clerk named Thomas, seemed nervous. "Did Mr. Whittaker have any unusual habits or interests?" Harold asked. Thomas hesitated. "Well, he often visited the old subway station at Elmwood. He said it reminded him of his childhood." Harold's eyes narrowed. The Elmwood station had been closed for years, but it was still accessible. That evening he returned to the station, flashlight in hand. The air was damp, and the walls were covered in graffiti. As he explored, Harold found a hidden door behind a pile of debris. The small key from Charles's briefcase fit perfectly. Inside, he discovered a small room filled with old documents, photographs, and a diary. The diary belonged to Clara Whittaker. It revealed that she and Charles had been involved in a secret project years ago, a plan to uncover a hidden treasure rumored to be buried beneath the subway. But Clara had died mysteriously before they could complete their mission. Harold realized that Charles had been trying to finish what they had started, but someone didn't want him to succeed. The next day, Harold confronted Thomas at the bank. "You knew about the treasure, didn't you?" he said. Thomas's face turned pale. "I didn't mean for anyone to get hurt. Charles trusted me, but when I found out about the treasure, I got greedy. I followed him to the subway that night. We argued, and he slipped." Harold's heart sank. It wasn't murder, but it was still a tragedy. Thomas was arrested, and the treasure, a collection of rare artifacts, was recovered. As Harold stood at the Elmwood station one last time, he couldn't help but feel a sense of sadness. The subway secret had cost 2 lives, but at least the truth had finally come to light. And with that, Detective Harold Grimes walked away, ready for his next case.